I literally just got home from a relaxing walk along the bank of the Tennessee River, and perhaps it was the red-winged blackbirds we saw, or maybe it was the adorable baby skunks, but something had it in my head when I got home. I really wanted to sit down and talk to you guys about RAM in smartphones. It's also possible that there's just something wrong with me. Now, look, I said a long time ago, and I've been saying for a long time, that RAM in smartphones just isn't that important. We have more than we could possibly need the vast majority of the time. Whatever app you're opening, whether it's Threads or it's Twitter or it's Instagram or just pick an application, most of them are using less than like 100 megabytes of RAM. Now, yes, if you're doing video editing or you're playing a game or something like that, that is obviously going to be different. But for the most part, most applications you are running on your phone don't use that much RAM. If you have 6 or 8 gigs of RAM, you're going to have enough free memory to be able to scroll back to an app you used 8 apps ago, and it's very likely still going to be loaded into RAM. And because of that, I've said it is not the bottleneck that people seem to think it is. Storage speed is important. Of course, the processor speed is important. RAM, we've probably got enough. And phones that are doing 10, 12, 14 gigs of RAM, there's just not really a great reason for this for most users. Again, I know I'm going to get people in comments saying, I need 20 apps concurrently open, or I do a lot of video editing, or I do a lot of gaming. Absolutely, if you do these things, I'm not talking to you, but you know what I mean. Most people don't need these things. However, my thinking on this is shifting for one specific reason, and it is large language models running locally on device. You guys remember just a couple of months ago when it was revealed that the Pixel 8 standard would not be getting Gemini Nano. Of course, this is Google's large language model, but it's the version that runs directly on the device. They're using this on the Pixel 8 Pro to summarize recordings, to do Magic Compose where it generates text, smart replies, things like that. Fairly basic stuff at this exact moment, but the important thing is it's an LLM and it's running locally on the device. Nothing's going to the cloud. We just heard a lot of stuff from Apple with their LLM, whatever it is that they are using, and Siri doing tasks on device as well. On device AI is going to only get more and more important as time goes on. And if you're going to run an LLM on your device, RAM is really important. That was the reason that Google cited. They said we can't do this on the Pixel 8 because it doesn't have enough RAM. Of course, they did renege and they went back and they've said, okay, you can have it on the 8A and on the 8 standard. You got to enable it in developer options, but they do warn that it could degrade system performance because you just won't have as much free RAM because this LLM is going to have to just be there eating up your free RAM 24/7. My point here is that we finally have a good reason to have more RAM on our phones. And that got me thinking about a couple of different rumored phones coming up, the Z Fold 6 and the Pixel 9. Let's take a look at the Z Fold 6 really quickly because I think that there's just, you can kind of tie these two together and I think things are going to be very, very interesting. So the Z Fold 6 full specs have been revealed. This is on Smart Pre, and this is pretty interesting. So the displays and things like that, none of that really matters. It's all pretty unsurprising. But look at this. 12 gigabytes of LPDDR5X RAM. That is the same RAM that we've had for a while. Now look, 12 is good, okay? So the Pixel 8 Pro, which is running Gemini Nano directly on it, has 12 gigs of RAM. So there's no reason to think that this thing is not going to be able to do all of those sorts of things. It's going to be able to run this stuff just fine. You may argue that because this is a very small spec bump, you're getting the next gen processor. Everything else is more or less the same. I'll link to this in the description because it's got the rest of the specs, but just spoiler alert, it's pretty much the same as it's been for a little while now. You may argue that that's kind of maybe not conducive of, like, you know, dropping almost $2,000 to get this new phone. But if we're honing in just on RAM and then what that means for AI on-device AI processes, you'd say 12 gigabytes is probably going to be just fine. But if we jump over to this article, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this. It is a Russian website. They have a lot of information about the Pixel 9. In fact, they have literal photos of the Pixel 9. If we scroll down here, here's some information. The Pixel 9 standard has 12 gigs of RAM. So we're up from 8 before, which to me says, hey, for the Pixel 9 standard, 12 gigs of RAM, that's what Google seems to think you really need to run Gemini Nano well. Of course, I filmed this entire video, had it ready to go. Actually had it uploaded, and then some news broke in the overnight hours. It is 6:30 in the morning right now, and I am correcting this. I just showed you this page here that showed that the Pixel 9 was allegedly going to have 12 gigabytes of RAM. And you would assume, seeing as how these people have the Pixel 9 in front of them, that they would have this absolutely correct. But there is now a listing that has emerged on Geekbench for the Pixel 9. Please pay no attention to these scores. These are unoptimized. These are very early. I'm seeing people that are like, the Pixel 9 is slower than the Pixel 8. No, it is not. This is, please just ignore these early Geekbench scores. They're going to be significantly lower than they're actually going to be when the device ships. So ignore that. Scroll down though, and you'll see that it is listed as having 8 gigabytes of RAM. So the people that have the phone say it's 12. The people that have had the phone tested through their system, their database, they say that it is 8 gigs of RAM. Luckily, this has very little bearing on the rest of this video. You'll kind of see how this goes along. 12 gigs, 8 gigs. The biggest difference that would potentially make is that there's a chance that a base model Pixel 8 might not really support some of the Gemini stuff that well, right? So Gemini Nano doesn't run apparently all that great on 8 gigs of RAM, and that'd be a bit disappointing for them to ship a device, a Pixel 9, with only 8 gigs of RAM. But the same thing, listing for the Pro XL, we're about to talk about this, it does show 16 gigs of RAM, so we're on target there. Just wanted to quickly insert that. The rest of the video, though, should still be exactly the same. But look at the Pro models, the 9 Pro and the 9 Pro XL. 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, there's two ways you can look at this. Way number one is that they said, hey, we want Gemini Nano running on the 9 standard, so it needs to have 12 gigs of RAM, and if the standard has 12, then the Pro must therefore have more. Let's just do 16. Or we can double back to something I've been talking about quite a bit on this channel, and it is this rumored enhanced version of Google Assistant, which is apparently internally currently called Pixie. Like I've said before, it's not going to be called Pixel Pixie. That's going to be confusing. Just like Bard is now Gemini, it'll probably be called something else. But what this is supposed to be doing, according to the rumors, and these rumors have been light, but every description of it I have seen does really make it sound like the Pixel 9 is going to be doing things very similar to what Siri is doing with iOS 18, and that is the ability to do multimodal requests. And again, doing these things locally on your hardware. And maybe, just maybe, the Pro models need 16 gigs of RAM because they are the ones that are going to be running this enhanced version of Google Assistant, this advanced Pixie thing. Now, I've already made an entire video sort of talking about what Siri's doing and then talking about what I think Google is going to be doing with the Pixel 9, but to be very, very succinct, the example that they gave on stage, which I think is going to be what this is going to be actually doing, not just a demo, I think this is going to be a real thing on the Pixel 9, is taking a photo of a pair of shoes and telling it, I want to return these. It then searches through your Gmail inbox, finds where you ordered it, then finds the link to return them, fills that out, and then pops up and says, here's where you can go drop them off to ship them back. Maybe we're not going to have it quite that good when it first launches, but that's the kind of stuff that we are talking about. If you want to see that entire video, I have a link to that in the description down below. So obviously, we're making a lot of assumptions here, right? If we're assuming that the reason these things have 16 gigs of RAM is because Pixie is going to be RAM hungry. It's going to be some more advanced version of Gemini Nano, which I think, by the way, I think this is absolutely plausible. I think everything I'm telling you is 100% plausible. We then have to think about the Z Fold 6. And let's be real, they're not going to give other devices this Pixie thing straight away. This is going to be a Pixel exclusive thing, at least for a little while. But you have to ask yourself, given the cooperation between Samsung and Google, the fact that Samsung devices, your 24 Ultra, and now actually lots of Samsung phones, are running things from Gemini, you have to ask yourself, 12 gigabytes of RAM on the Z Fold 6, are you properly future-proofed for these kinds of things? It seems crazy to me right now to be saying maybe 12 gigs of RAM is not enough for what's coming in the next year or two. But guys, it's probably not. We talk about locally running LLMs. I don't think 12 gigs is enough. And while I am skeptical as to how the software will kind of go along in the future from OnePlus, I do have to point out to you that the OnePlus Open already has 16 gigs of RAM. We thought this was overkill, but with this stuff happening, maybe it's not overkill. Now, again, is OnePlus going to be at Samsung's level when it comes to software development? No, absolutely not. But it's just something to keep in mind. One thing I cannot wait to see further leaks on, and I'm surprised we haven't yet seen it, is what is the Pixel Fold 2 going to be like? How much RAM is that device going to be rocking? If it's 12, I think that's a really, really bad sign. If it's 16, we are ticking boxes and we are staying AI LLM future-proofed for a good while. So it's something just to watch for as these leaks continue. I'm sure we're going to get that at some point. Maybe it's already happened and I just missed it somehow. I don't think it has. But watch for that RAM count. I think finally, RAM might be an important thing to watch on these devices for the next little while. Again, this is lots of heavy speculation. I think this is fun, though. This is fun to talk about, to speculate about, and I can't wait to see your comments in the comments down below, guys. Thanks for watching. Again, hit those comments and tell me if you think I'm crazy. Do you think I'm onto something? Let me know. I'll see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.